Mount Washington is famous for the world's worst weather and for a unique train that takes passengers on a steep ride up the Granite State's tallest peak.
That's right. Kat Villanzoni shows us the sweeping views from the Cog Railway in this week's Destination Recreation.
A train station is probably the last thing you'd expect to see 2,700 feet up the highest peak in the Northeast. This line of tracks, cutting thousands of feet up to the top, is the Mount Washington Cog Railway. It opened in 1869.
This thing was built by men from the Civil War, so you're touching history, you're riding history, and you can't do that a lot anymore. Just cutting the road to get up to the base must have been incredible. You had to do it with teams of oxen and horses. What they built still works. It's the simplicity of it.
The giant cog gear that gives the railroad its name catches in the rack and climbs it like a ladder up the mountain to bring passengers to the top. What's unusual is locomotive and coach are not attached here. Instead, the engine pushes it up.
Thank you.
On Mount Washington, passengers can count their blessings when the weather is good, which means on sunny days like this, the trains are packed. The brakeman gives a quick introduction and then we're off, climbing the first steep hill. It feels a lot like the start of a tall roller coaster. At 3,700 feet, you ride by the Wambeck tank, where steam engines fill their water. Soon after, you can see Burt's Ravine, and then you get to Jacob's Ladder, which has a more than 37% grade.
Jacob's Ladder has actually been in the Guinness Book of World Records 2 different times. The first time for being the steepest railroad trestle on the road.
As you're looking out over the views of the mountains, you come up upon the skyline, and then finally, you can see the top. At nearly 6,300 feet up on the summit, on a clear day, passengers can see into 4 states and Canada, even the Atlantic Ocean. They have an hour to snap photos and visit the observatory, and then it's time to head back down.
Some of the guys I worked with have been here for 40 years.
Engineer Robert Dole is behind the scenes in the cab, watching and listening for anything unusual.
We're constantly looking at the tracks, both up and down. Every time a train passes over the track, it can tear up a piece of track or a piece of rack. So we have to watch for that.
And while he's watching the tracks, we're watching the view. The railroad recommends passengers sit on different sides of the train on the way up and down to make sure they get a chance to see everything. On this day, you can see 80 to 90 miles out over the foliage. It's a view that Dole says, even with 300 trips a year, never gets old.
I like the fall. It's not quite so hot. The color is nice.
3 hours after they started, the passengers roll down the final hill into the station. They told us the trip was one they'll remember forever.
Oh, he loved it. And up at the top, his daddy asked me to marry him. You're kidding? Nope, not kidding.
You could see all the different states, and we learned a lot about the weather station up there, and a beautiful ride. We love the Cog Railway.
The railroad runs in all weather until they have to give in to Mother Nature's wintry might in November. Riding the rails in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, Kat Villanzoni, Channel 3 News.
What an incredible experience.
Oh, so awesome. You know, I grew up going to New Hampshire all the time. I've never actually been on the Cog Railroad. I've seen it so many times, and it looks so neat.
I know, and neat to hear the background of it, too, that Kat kind of filled us in on. There are actually 2 types of trains running on those tracks, the steam engines and also the new biodiesel ones, and all of them were designed and built right at Mount Washington.
Good stuff.
I know, incredible.
And then the railroad is hoping for their 3rd record year of visits in a row. So for more information on how to visit, you can go to our website, WCAX.com.